definition of terms, we have legislative autonomy, which means the ability of the legislature to operate independently and make its decisions without undue influence. Now, what are these corrupt practices in the legislature we talk about? We talk about budget padding, misallocation of resources, bribery, the virus of Ghana must go, where lawmakers collect bribe for appointment of appointees, and also the constituency project fraud. A host of others, but then for fact of time, I will be leaving into this. Now, these are found practical example in the National Assembly. For example, in 2016, ex-speaker Yakubu Dogara was accused of inserting 40 billion naira constituency project fraud into the annual budget for a project that didn't exist. What happened? No sanction, no investigation, no scrutiny was put in place. Yet we claim to run a democracy. We have a democratic system that has continued to assault on the right, and this is God getting its source from the legislature, because whether we like it or not, the legislative body in Nigeria is the most powerful arm of government, and it has the duty to checkmate these other arms of government. Therefore, if the legislative body fails, the executive can make corruption, the judiciary can also implement corruption, and whatever threat is coming from these places would continue to suffice. Now, it's important that I show how these corrupt legislative practices is a threat to democracy. We all know that when the pillar of a building falls, the collapse of that building is inevitable. Therefore, in making this point, I will be showing you how this corruption has continued to destroy and attack each pillar.
Please, I want us to just agree on a timer. I'm going to
panel of judges, my co-debaters, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. My name is Prof, and I am the first speaker for the opposing side of the motion, which states corrupt legislative practices in Nigeria, threat to democracy and legislative autonomy. We strongly oppose this motion. Before I go further, let me begin by defining the key terms in our debate topic. Firstly, we have corrupt legislative practices. I speak and I quote, "This is the unethical or illegal actions within the legislative body, either through manipulations, bribery, forgery, misuse of office or power, etc." Secondly, we have democracy. Democracy is the system of government by which the people elect and select their leaders through regular, free and fair elections, and which is upheld by rule of law and institutional checks and balances. Finally, we have legislative autonomy. This is the independence of the legislature to make laws and carry out its duties without undue interference, not interventions, interference from other acts of government. Now, what does this motion claim? It argues that corruption within the Nigerian legislature fundamentally threatens Nigeria's democracy and legislative autonomy. My opponents, we say no. Before I begin, I would like to clearly state our position that one, we, the opposition, are not here to be in defense to corruption or to argue in favor to corruption. Instead, we are here to submit that while there are instances of corruption in the Nigerian legislature, it does not pose an existential threat to democracy and Nigeria's legislative autonomy. Instead, the persistence and existence of democratic election, media freedom, active civil society, and judicial intervention, even internal checks within the legislature, proves and demonstrates that Nigeria's democracy and legislative autonomy is intact and active. Our team will be arguing the following. That's one, Nigeria's democracy is driven by multifaceted institutions, not solely by the legislature. That two, Nigeria's legislative autonomy is deep-rooted, protected and guarded by the Constitution and cannot be undone simply due to isolated acts of some legislature. That three, efforts are already in place to curtail and address corruption through public archive, investigative journalism, and vibrant public engagement, even active anti-corruption agencies, proving the system still works. Now, elaborating on our first point, which is Nigeria's democracy is upheld or driven by multifaceted constitutions, by multifaceted institutions, not solely by the legislature. That simply means that it takes or it does not take the corruption of one arm to actually destroy or threaten a democracy. Instead, it requires the collaboration of other arms of government, willing masses, and democratic factors to actually come together to destroy democracy, which is not so in our country, Nigeria, today. Moving further, Nigerian democracy is upheld by a combination of democratic elections, active civil society, media freedom, and massive public engagement. And those factors continue to hold the government accountable. In our society today in Nigeria, all of you seated here will attest that elections still happen. Election doesn't happen in a situation or in a country where the democracy is threatened. No, but elections still take place. I don't know if you know the meaning of democracy. It means that election in our country, Nigeria today, we conduct elections every 4 years. This still happens. And our electorate comes out to vote. I came out to vote during the last election. The candidates present their manifestos. Even following the due process, is it about the bills? Bills are debated before they are passed into law. We don't just wake up because you are part of the legislative and you be like, this law will be favorable to me, then you make law. No, you don't do that. You follow due process. It will be debated before it will be enacted to become a law. Let's take May 29th. You all know May 29th is the day Democracy Day, right? Yes. Now it's June 12th. The then president, did not just say, I want to change this from May 29th to become June 12th. No, it was debated in the law court before it was accepted as May 29th. And for the fact that the then president, Muhammadu Buhari, thought it wise to change to May 29th to June 12th as the new Democracy Day in commemoration of the late NK brother, just proves that democracy in Nigeria, even in the midst of corruption, is being held up high and intact. My wonderful people, these are not a sign of a broken system. Instead, it is a sign of democratic resilience and growth. Thank you.
Ethics their checkmate the activities. But since the history of democracy in Nigeria, no single senator or member of the House of Representatives has been jailed for obvious corruption despite what we see in the House. She also said that it's not just the legislators that are corrupt, but I want to tell you that when a watchdog is corrupt, every thief roams freely. So the legislators are not supposed to blend into this corruption because they are the watchdog. Panel, permit me to start with this adage. When the drummers are corrupt, even the dancers stumble. And unfortunately in Nigeria, the drummers, which are the legislators, has lost its rhythm to the voice of corruption, conspiracy and compromise, making legislative autonomy a mere spoken words. Going with the recent case of Senator Natasha Oti-Uduhan, who bravely accused the Senate President of sexual harassment. Instead of transparent investigation to this matter, her microphone was muted, she was suspended for 6 months, allowance returned, her petitions were dismissed on procedural grounds, and also she was accused of unruly behavior. But no, this is not just a case of one senator. It shows how corrupt practice can erode democratic principles. Ladies and gentlemen, I have 8,001 points to back up this argument, but before I proceed on protocol duly observed, I am Alexandra Lucy Onyechi Akuboy, and I proudly rise with conviction and patriotic fire to propose the motion which states that corrupt legislative practice threats to democracy and legislative autonomy. 1. It compromises legislative integrity and its autonomy. Legislative autonomy is the ability of the lawmakers to make laws independently and objectively without external influence from their sponsors or political bodies. But when corruption seeps in, autonomy becomes a mine. Bribes, budget padding, political godfatherism, they are not just bad behaviors, they are chains that tie lawmakers to their sponsors or executive bodies that can either reward or punish them, making legislature an appendage of co-presidency rather than a co-equal arm of the government. In 2024, Senator Abdul Nengi raised concerns about 3 trillion worth of untraceable projects, but he was silenced immediately because exposing the truth would threaten the vested interest, that's internal censorship sponsored by corrupt loyalties. A legislator that do not have the power to speak truth has automatically lost its voice and has become puppets. And when they are puppets, the laws they make, the policies they pass, the budgets they approve no longer reflect the will of the people, but the will of the corrupt. What autonomy is left if these people cannot make their own laws? Furthermore, it breeds distrust in public institutions. Nigerians no longer trust the legislative arm of the government, not because they do not understand democracy, but because they have seen corruption silence accountability. When there is corruption, petitions mysteriously disappear, just as the case of Senator Natasha. Probes go nowhere, oversight becomes overnight businesses. You did not even expect the voice of the people to be heard when the microphone is stuffed with dirty money. When lawmakers are lawbreakers, what becomes of the law? There is an adage that says, he who pays the piper calls the plate. So you did not even expect them to checkmate the activities of the legislators when they are paid off. In 2021, international transfer by
everywhere ranks Nigeria as the 154th country out of 180 countries in corruption perception, citing legislative compromise as the major factor. Panel, do you still need further evidence? Furthermore, it undermines democratic representation. I mean, in true democracy, leaders are elected to represent the voice of the people, but however, they go to serve personal and party interests, encouraging lobbying, kickbacks with little or no oversight. I mean, in 2024, a member of the House of Representatives, Fubara Gambo, raised concern about accused the Speaker of 30 billion worth of untraceable projects. How can the voice of the people be heard when this microphone is stuffed with dirty money? I'm not just here to point fingers, I'm also here to propose solutions. Firstly, we should push for a legislative transparency act that will mandate live broadcasting of plenary sessions and budget discussions. Nigeria should see who is sleeping, who is working. I mean, when the camera rolls, corruption hides. Secondly, we should empower the EFCC and Code of Conduct Bureau to checkmate the activities of this legislature without external influence. Chinua Achebe once said that the problem of Nigeria is bad government. I want to ask you, panel, would you let a tip guard your treasury? My first speaker mentioned how the pillars are being destroyed by corruption. A house without a pillar is a collapse waiting to happen. I remain undiluted. Alexandra Lucy Onyechi Akubwe.
Hi, the second speaker from the opposing side, opposing the debate topic, we say corrupt legislative practices in Nigeria, threat to democracy and legislative autonomy. My dear people of Nigeria, do you remember that the legislative autonomy we are talking about today is constitutionally structured, embraced, and judicially defended? Now, let us take Rivers State as a case of study. Governor Fubara, who went ahead presenting the year annual appropriation bill before just 3 members, he go contrary to the law. Check section 96 subsection 1, which have established the standard for sitting of the House of Assembly. That is, the 1/3 of the members should be present. Therefore, so doing, the Supreme Court intervened by nullifying this setting. I want you to understand that this bold action taken by the Supreme Court is a clear fact that there is no way a corrupt legislative practices by set of legislators can ever pose a threat to democracy, to legislative autonomy. Secondly, let us understand that through Nigerian institutions, anti-corrupt institutions like EFCC, ICPC, there is always a proving that corrupt legislative practices by set of legislators can never pose threat to democracy and legislative autonomy. Let us relate with what happened to Senator Ojus Okano, who was arrested by the same EFCC my opponent mentioned here. He was arrested. He was persecuted. He faced trials, and he was found guilty by men interpreting the law made with the basis of our unbeatable legislative autonomy. Then he was found guilty of embezzling the public funds, 6.75 billion naira. So he was sentenced to 12 years in prison, though he was later released. With this point, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, that there is no way corrupt legislative practices by some legislators can pose threat to legislative autonomy. However, I want us never to ignore the power of social media, the power of public participation, the power of investigative journalism. Remember, the press is always the watching dog for democracy. Even as my opponent is mentioned the issue between the Senator Natasha and the Senate President, the press never go quiet. They are always saying what is happening. So therefore, there is no way a corrupt legislative practices can ever threat that of democracy. People, let me tell you the truth is that you can beat a child, but you can never close his or her mouth to what? Voice out. The case between Senator Natasha and that of Senate President is a clear evidence to us. Senator Natasha, she was suspended, delayed to pay her salary, but she never stopped voicing her grievances. According to Section 36 of Nigeria Constitution, freedom for speech. This thing we are talking about, corruption, is right everywhere. Even in every autonomy, in every legislative, in any organs of government. But let me suggest a solution to this problem. The solution to this problem starts from you and I. The solution to this problem starts from a clear and a clear understanding and holding the organs of government responsible, accountability. The solution to this problem is for us to understand there is a principle of check and balances. The solution to this problem is for the people to always be listened to. Nevertheless, my ladies and gentlemen, remember the presence of democracy never means absence of corruption. It means a warfare to corruption. The presence of legislative autonomy too does not mean absence of corruption, even in the world. It also means a warfare to fight corruption. So with this point of mind, ladies and gentlemen, I believe these are facts that will convince you that there is no way legislative autonomy, corrupt legislative practices can ever threat legislative autonomy and that of democracy.
There's a very big problem here today, and it is one that is a threat to the foundations of our democracy. Panel, I will tell you that, respectfully speaking, the freedom of expression that my opponent just talked about is not section 39, it's actually section 36. Moving further, we had 39. Sorry, moving further, panel, to tell you that, like, they never told us, panel, they never told us how legislative autonomy is not a threat. How it is not a threat. They came and were telling us how it is like democracy is still standing. But panel, I can tell you that how we know democracy is standing is from the ideas and the perception of the people. And what does the people have to say about democracy, about election? Panel, we all know what I am going to be telling you. Titus Christopher, I am going to be telling you how that we, Team UNEC, provide solutions to this problem. We don't just talk about problems. My first and second speaker have been talking about problems, giving you statistics, everything and on and on. But we are going to provide solutions to these problems. Number one, what do we provide? Actionable solutions. Number one, we say, let there be independency in the budgetary allocations of the anti-corruption agencies, ICPC and the EFCC. What do we expect them to do? Like, we have something already that is already in place, that the judiciary have their budgetary allocations directly from the Consolidated Revenue Fund without being touched. Panel, if these anti-corruption agencies can actually have something similar to that, it will go a long way to see that they will carry out their activities without the fear of budgetary cuts and everything. Another point of mine, another solution we provide is, let there be active implementation of digital transparency so that all Nigerians can actually have access to the budget, access to who money is sending to, money are being sent to, who, like, and whom, like, these monies are sent to, what they are meant for, and monitoring everything. Panel, this will actually solve a lot of problems because the 38.7 million Nigerians that are active on social media can actually trace where these budgetary allocations go. They can trace where they come from. They can trace whom they are sent to. What do we have in this case? What is the impact in this case? Panel, people that are found wanting. We already see how the NSCDC momentum gain momentum. The entire population of students of IMT, students of ASUT, students of UNEC can actively stand proud as gorillas, silverback gorillas, beat their chest and say, we are actively represented in the legislature and we are not disenfranchised. They can come outside and be bold to say that. Second point is, they can actually, like, it's going to lead to legislative autonomy. This legislative autonomy we have been talking about, panel, it is very, very important because when you talk about representation, active representation, the judiciary does not do that. The executive does not do that. It is actually the legislature that does active representation. And this will, the impact of this is our politicians and our lawmakers will stand up high in the house and say against and talk against laws and policies that do not favor their constituents. For this, Team UNEC is proud to propose. Thank you.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, and of course, my fellow students, standing before you, I am here as the first speaker from the opposing side. Now, as the first speaker from the opposing side, I'm just here to summarize the case and points and show you clearly why you should agree with us. First of all, Let us revisit our stand. Corrupt legislative practices. Why? Corrupt legislative practices, while real, is not a threat to democracy or legislative autonomy. We acknowledge the challenges, but we reject the exaggerated claims suggested by this motion. Now, our first speaker made it very clear to us that Nigerian democracy is supported strongly by diverse institutions that are not just the legislatures. And our second speaker made it very clear to us that Constitution is rooted in. And our second speaker made it very clear to us. Our democracy is under a threat. But they seem to forget that there is corruption in every democratic system of government, from China to US to Brazil, but yet the system still survives and evolves just like Nigeria. My opponents, I challenge you to show me a democratic system of government without corruption, and I'll show you an autocratic system of government without force and cohesion. Now, we have argued the following, and we have also proven this. One,
tax, or at least they should. And for those dreaming of Japa, remember, for abroad, tax they wait for you. Taxation, the backbone for national development, a compulsory contribution that fuels infrastructural growth, empowers public services, and propels economic progress. Today, I rise in support of the motion which says, and I quote, the daily 200 naira tax levy on wheelbarrow pusher, a fair policy or an undue burden. But before I proceed, I wish to recognize and honor the leadership of the House, esteemed panel of judges, moderator, co-debaters, ladies and gentlemen. I am Ibe Lucy, a representative of Enugu State Polytechnic Iwolo campus, and I stand to say that the 200 naira levy is not just fair, but it is necessary for our nation's development and other. There is need to define the key words in the proposition. What is tax levy? Fair policy and undue burden. According to Black's Law Dictionary, a levy is a legal collection of a tax. In that case, the 200 naira collected from the wheelbarrow pusher is meant to develop and maintain the very own places that wheelbarrow pusher is making use of. It is not exploitation. What then is fair policy? Fair policy is one that is just, balanced and reasonable, making sure that nobody is overburdened and everyone is contributing based on their capacity. An undue burden is a heavy demand placed on someone, especially the one that is beyond the person's ability to bear. Having defined this, my judges, are we then going to say that the 200 naira levy on a wheelbarrow pusher that ends up to 3,000 to 6,000 naira in a day is a burden to them? If that same person benefits from road, market, and provided security, is 200 naira contribution too much for the government to ask? We say it is not, we say it is fair, and we say it is necessary with my following point. The law supports it. This levy is not a random invention. It is grounded in law. Under the Personal Income Tax Act 2011 and the Enugu State Tax Code, informal sector workers, including a wheelbarrow pusher, are meant to contribute through a presumptive tax regime. What does that even mean? It is a tax method used by the government for people who do not have formal records like receipt and business book, but still earn money daily. So instead of excluding them completely from paying tax, which is going to be unfair to the other citizens, or my audience, would you like to be paying tax while others don't pay? Of course not. This practice is widely practiced in Kenya, Rwanda, and Ghana with great success. This levy is legal, constitutional, and practiced internationally. It is not exploitation in the Enugu, it is inclusion. Secondly, I will ask a question. Is tax the only way by which the government can make money? My worthy opponent may ask, why tax the poor? Can't the government generate money through the natural resources we have in Enugu? And the answer is very simple. There are three major ways by which the government can generate money. The first one is natural resources. The second one, taxation, and then loans and grants. But out of these three, tax is the most stable, reliable, and sustainable. Natural resources can finish, loans create debt, but taxes, they grow with the people. Even countries like Saudi Arabia that are best known for their best oil, they still tax their citizens. Why? Because no great nation depends on their natural resources only. Tax is the foundation. Now let's come back home to what many of us will understand. Christians, my fellow Nigerians, we all pay our tithes. And we do that joyfully. We give 10% of our income to our churches. But yet, when the government asks for 200 naira, trying to build road, market, we say it's an undue burden. According to scripture, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and give to God what belongs to God. If Jesus could understand that, if Jesus could understand the duty of government and the role of the citizens to support, then why should any citizen call 200 naira tax levy a burden? Let us not be hypocritical. We say nations must work. We say we want a better nation, but we don't want to contribute a token to the support of it. In conclusion, this 200 naira levy is legal, fair, and very important. With these few but tangible points of mine, I strongly believe I've been able to convince you that the 200 naira levy is not just fair, but it is an inclusion, and it shows that we are responsible citizens. Thank you, and God bless you.
Co-debaters and fellow opponents, and the distinguished guests said here, I am Wachuku Favor Chiamaka. I am the leader of the opposition from Enugu State University of Science and Technology. We have gathered here today to debate a pressing issue that is affecting the most vulnerable members of the Nigerian society within the context of our jurisprudence. I stand here today to argue that the daily 200 naira tax levy on wheelbarrow pusher is not a fair economic policy, but an undue burden on low-income earners. This tax aggravates poverty. It limits economic mobility. It also unequally impacts on vulnerable members of the society. Within the intricate tapestry of the Nigerian jurisprudence, the arguments surrounding this already established topic necessitate legal definitions or simple definitions, and I will proceed. What is a tax? According to the second edition of the Black's Law Dictionary, 1910, a tax is a contribution imposed by the government for the use and service of the state. Who is a wheelbarrow pusher? A wheelbarrow pusher is a daily wage earner relying on physical labor. What then is fair tax policy? A fair tax policy is one which prioritizes equity, sustainable development, justice, and equality for all. It aims to create an environment, an economic environment, whereby everyone can equally and gain the opportunity to participate, regardless of your background, regardless of your social status, and regardless of your income level. What then is undue burden? Undue burden is an excessive weight on these vulnerable members of the society. Who then is a low-income earner? A low-income earner in this context is someone who barely earns enough. Lindsay Roosevelt is not about or whether we add more to those who have much, but whether we can provide enough for those who have too little. This argument today is going to prove that the daily 200 naira tax levy on these low-income earners is contrary to this principle. My deputy speaker and my deputy leader is going to elaborate on the following highlighted and outlined key points. Firstly, it affects their minimum income. It vitiates them and deprives them of the ability to afford basic necessities, therefore pushing them further into the lagoon of poverty. And this is contrary to Adam Smith's fair tax principle. What is a fair tax system? According to Adam Smith, he proposed that a fair tax system is that which the burden of taxation should be distributed according to the people's ability to pay. Now, secondly, when we talk about this 200 naira tax levy, it also limits the ability to invest in education. It limits the ability to invest in skill development. It limits the ability to invest in healthcare. which hinders economic mobility. Thirdly, it unequally impacts on vulnerable members of the society. Nigeria, and when we talk about vulnerable members, you have to look at the women, you have to look at the children, you have to look at the elderly ones. Also, it shows lack of compassion and empathy on the part of the policymakers. Like one of my professors, a human rights law professor, Professor Namani, would always say, what benefits is property or the right to property to a person who does not have property? Now tell me, what lives are the government trying to improve by taxing people whose lives are not even improved? Thirdly, it's going to have a ripple effect on the entire economy, affecting demand and also economic activities. Now, look at these wheelbarrow pushers. Some of them, they earn less than 2,000 naira a day, depending on the condition of the weather. Okay, how much is a plate of food? If you go to the normal booker, you get food for 1,000 naira without meat. Now, imagine them earning that kind of amount, 2,000 naira. Most of them hire, if you go to a main market, most of them hire their wheelbarrow for as much as 500 naira, 600 naira. Okay, they hire the wheelbarrow for that amount. How much do they use to pump tire? They pump their tire for about 500 naira or even more. Now, when you remove all these expenses from the 2,000 naira or less they even make daily, because there is competition in the market. A lot of people don't have access to employment due to the rate of unemployment in the country. So you see many people moving around with their wheelbarrows. Most of us pay as low as 300 naira for them to carry our load. So now tell me, if you should remove this 200 naira tax levy from the 2,000 naira, and then okay, you don't even know, what if they have family? Most of them are family men. They pay tuition fee. Okay, in conclusion, the government should be able to pay.
That works. Then you must build a people who contribute. Mr. Chairman, the panel of judges, accurate timekeeper, my moderator, my co-debaters, worthy opponents, distinguished audience, good day. I am here as the second speaker, and I stand firmly with my first speaker to support the motion that 200 naira daily tax levy on wheelbarrow pushers is a fair burden. But before I go further, I would like to clear the dust raised by the opposition. Now, my opponent talked about poverty, that 200 naira tax levy on wheelbarrow pushers reduces their income and makes them more poorer. But I ask, since when did poverty become the license to exemption from responsibility? Is it poverty that stops them from paying their monthly dues, transport levy, or from buying recharge cards daily?
It's not allowed, it's not allowed, it's not allowed. Continue, it's not allowed.
The opposition may speak about hardship, but they forget that exclusion fuels marginalization. So this policy is not intended to punish these workers. Rather, it is intended to include them in nation's building. Now over to the core of our arguments. Firstly, no nation can develop without taxation. From Berlin to Beijing, from London to Lagos, taxation fuels functional societies. In 2015, the United States of America spent over $560 billion on its defense budget. Not from donations, but from taxes. So I ask, does a nation become great by become great by chance or by shared responsibility? Is development some kind of a miracle of a product of a shared responsibility? Even the air we breathe is starts in some cities.
Please go there, you can take.
Further ado, my leader here has efficiently explained that 200 naira daily tax levy on wheelbarrow pushers is an undue burden. I, Agochukwu Samuel, the deputy leader of the opposition team, will further develop this argument by providing detailed analysis of the key points and presenting alternative solutions that prioritizes the welfare. Firstly, this tax on wheelbarrow pushers limits their ability to avoid basic necessity, further pushing them into the lagoons of poverty. My economy can function without tax revenue. This is true, even according to a report by Wilson newspaper on February 27, 2025, the chairman of the Enugu State Board of Internal Revenue emphasizes that the state government cannot execute projects without tax revenue. However, considering the meager income of these wheelbarrow pushers, the tax levy is unsustainable. If they earn 2,000 naira or on good days 2,500 naira, they are expected to pay their community fees. They are expected to pay wheelbarrow rental levies and feeding expenses for that day. And with a man that is having up to 2 kids at home and with a wife to take care of, this amount of money is not enough to take care of them. Additionally, according to a report of Business Day newspaper on June 21, 2022, the Open Alliance of Civil Societies and non-state actors demanded the clarification of the tax levies imposed on wheelbarrow pushers in Anambra State, highlighting the need for consideration of the impact of this tax on these low-burden income earners. You might think that 200 naira worth nothing, but wait until you are broke as a student and you are washing your clothes and you see 15 naira at the back of your pocket. That's when you know that 15 naira is worth gold. This 200 naira daily tax levy has an overall impact on their daily earnings and overall well-being. Low-income earners like wheelbarrow pushers are forced to make difficult decisions between basic necessities, further leading to decreased well-being and increased poverty. And this violates Section 14, Subsection 2, Paragraph B of the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, the highest constitution in the land, which prioritizes the welfare and security of the people. As encapsulated in this Latin maxim, supra populis suprema lex exto, which entails the welfare and security of the people shall be the highest and supreme law. Secondly, this tax levy limits these wheelbarrow pushers' ability to invest in education and access proper health care, further hindering economic mobility. Now, according to a report by Golden News Nigeria, the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Chukwuma Solidu, according to a report by Golden News Nigeria on January 11, 2024, the governor of Anambra State, Professor Charles Chukwuma Solidu, waived the tax levy imposed on these wheelbarrow pushers, highlighting the need for the government's responsibility of consideration of the impact of this tax on these individuals. Additionally, according to a report on January 20, 2022, the chairman of the Wheelbarrow Pushers Association, Edo State chapter to be precise, emphasizes the struggle that these wheelbarrow pushers go through, and on favorable conditions, they don't even have to work, and they push wheelbarrow under this hot scorching sun, only to be given 3,000 or less for every load that they move. This emphasizes that they need support. They need our support as members of the society. And I would like to ask the proposing team, how do you expect the wheelbarrow pushers, which weekly earning is not even enough to pay for a hospital card or consultant fee, access medical health care? Even the cheapest malaria drug now in our country is 3,000 or more. Thirdly, this tax is unfair and has an unequal impact on the vulnerable group. According to national statistics, 62% of the population of Nigeria are poor. That's 133 million people are multidimensionally poor in Nigeria. And, okay, in conclusion, a wise man once said, and I quote, "Our life begins to end the day we become silent about things that truly matter. Our job is not to deny the story, but to devour the ending and rumble at the truth until we come to a place where we think." This is that particular place where we think. We wheelbarrow pushers are vulnerable members of the society, and they need our support. They need our support. And I also advise that the government should provide incentive for informal participants in the society to formalize, as this will help social stability and economic development. At the same time, promote vulnerable individuals in the society. Thank you.
Now, before I proceed, my first point has to do with revenue generation. Now, let me take you down the statistics road, which has to do with a mathematical illustration. Let's take Enugu State for a whole as an example. If we have about 10,000 wheelbarrow pushers in Enugu State, that
means development, 2 million naira, 5 million naira, whereas the source from which this money is gotten is not developed. Honorable Speaker, impartial judges, I am Mbamara Chukufevo, the whip of the opposition team from Enugu State University of Science and Technology, ESUT. Honorable Speaker, this debate has highlighted the need for a more just and equitable economic policy. We therefore urge the government to reconsider the daily 200 naira tax levy on low-income earners and prioritize fairness and equity. These wheelbarrow pushers are being exposed to scorching sun to be able to get what they will eat in a day. In conclusion, I will summarize our key points and highlight the need for a more equitable economic policy. Our team has validly established
that this tax exacerbates poverty, limits economic mobility, reduce disposable income, and lead to informal economic disruption. Low-income earners will have less money to spend on goods and services, affecting demand and economic activity. The reduced spending power on the part of low-income earners could impact other sectors like construction, agriculture, highlighting the need for careful consideration of taxation policy impact on the part of low-income earners and the broader economy. As expressed by Barrister Chijeke Edoga, standing on the view of Adam Smith, the renowned economist, that a good tax must adhere to the principles of certainty, fairness, efficiency, and convenience. Fairness in this context implies that the tax should be compatible with the taxpayer's condition, including his ability to pay in line with personal and family needs. Bringing it home to Enugu State, does this 200 naira daily tax levy on low-income earners mirror the tax principles set out by the renowned economist Adam Smith, which states that a good tax must be fair, certain, efficient, and convenient? Barrister Chijeke Edoga also emphasized that the people of Enugu State are being taxed without their input and with no regard to their capacity, echoing the agony of taxation without representation. In the year 1929, the Aba women rose against the colonial masters to protest taxation without representation. In some states in Nigeria, these liberal pushers have undertaken peaceful demonstration showing that this tax is being levied on them without representation. The Deputy Speaker of my team has stated other alternative ways in which government can generate revenue to provide infrastructures in the country, which is progressive taxation, targeted exception, diversification of revenue sources, and grants from federal government, collaboration with private sectors, and even revenues from government-owned enterprises. We call upon the government to reconsider this daily tax levy of 200 naira on low-income earners and work on creating a more just and equitable society in which all can benefit from. As stated by Winston Churchill in the year 1909, you can tax wages or you can tax wealth. That is the choice. Taxation should not only have regard to the volume of the wealth, but to the character of its origin. Thank you.
Value is a necessary reform to protect tenants, promote transparency, thereby making house more affordable, especially for low and medium income Nigerians. And with this I say, good day, honorable judges, fellow debaters, and distinguished guests. Standing before you is no other than Ezuki Chidebe Promise, a noble student of Enugu State College of Education and Technical. Today, I stand in strong support of the motion which says that Housing agency and legal fee at 10% is promoting the real estate sector. But before I go further, Housing agency and legal fee at 10% simply says that real estate simply means that agents and lawyers cannot charge with more than 10% rate value as a service fee, and also legal professionals like lawyers who are helping people with a document agreement cannot charge with more than 10%, and so forth. Furthermore, Housing agency and legal fee simply says that the real estate agents cannot charge people more than 10%. Firstly, in a country like Nigeria, where houses are already inaccessible and affordable for millions of people, tenants are further burdened by the excessive charges by the agents, often paying about 50 to 30% on top of their rent. That is not fair at all. A 10% cap is a fair and practical solution to ease the financial burden on renters, thereby promoting transparency, affordability, and standardized costs across all the board. If we want exclusive housing, we must make sure that people could actually afford to move into a home and not just to dream of it. Secondly, a 10% cap will actually reduce the cost of burden on tenants. It is no longer a new thing that a lot of Nigerians are already unemployed and their earning isn't quite impressive. Imagine waking up in a city where no one could actually afford to move into a home. Not that the houses aren't there, but the agency fees are quite outrageous. Imagine when you're made to pay about 400,000 naira as your rent fee. Then suddenly, you're not expected to pay 50 to 30% agent fee. That is paying about 150 to 300,000 naira aside the actual rent money you're made to pay. That is paying about 850,000 naira. Believe me or not, it's now quite ridiculous. Have it in mind that once a 10% cap is being implemented, it will cut off all this excessive burden on tenants, thereby helping them to access housing easily. Furthermore, a 10% cap will actually will actually promote credibility and fairness. It will prevent exploitation. It is no longer a new thing that lack of regulation has created room for dishonest people, thereby deceiving innocent clients. And this has become a daily thing among the agents and legal professionals, as they charge people more than 10%. They charge people multiple times over the same product due to lack of regulation. I'm quite sure that majority of people seated down here today have had such an experience, permitting to use the word criminals that disguise themselves as agents, thereby deceiving innocent people. Just have it in mind that once a 10% cap is being implemented, it will help people to secure home and thereby reducing the number of people they render homeless. Furthermore, this 10% cap actually supports the government housing policy goals. As of 2023, Nigeria had a housing shortfall of exceeding 22 million units, and this resulted to overcrowding, slum growth, and rising rent prices due to unregulated fees. Have it in mind that once this 10% cap is being implemented, a lot of people will be saved, a lot of families will not be thrown out in the street. My dear esteemed judges, permit me to remind my opponents on the needs and importance of this implementation of the 10% fee. I'm quite sure that my opponents will be under the impression that once a 10% cap is being implemented, it will actually, first of all, reduce the income of the agents. Have it in mind that professional agents' income can actually be fair and not exploitative. Agents could learn too, but in a more reasonable way. Also know that once a 10% cap is being implemented, it ensures credibility and trust. And they might also be under the impression that once a 10% cap is being implemented, it will create black markets. Allow me to put it to you all today that black market is already in existence and is due to lack of regulation. And this has created a lot of people, thereby making them deceive people multiple times because there is no regulation in the market sector. Have it in mind that once a 10% cap is being implemented, it will make sure to discourage every form of informal dealings in the market sector. And also, my opponent will be like, there is no need for 10% implementation. The market should regulate itself. Actually, I agree with them. But let's be realistic. It is not realistic in a country like Nigeria, a country where renters have little or no bargaining power, a country where renters have no standard protection over them. A quick reminder for everyone sitting down here today. I want you all to have it in mind that a 10% cap will not drive professionals away. Rather, it will strengthen strength in the real estate sector. Once a 10% cap is being implemented, it is not an attack on the professionals. Rather, it's a lifeline for the tenants. When fees are fair and predictable, clients feel safe and agents become more valid. Regulation doesn't lower quality. Instead, it ensures standard, transparency, accessibility, affordability, accountability, and growth for all. And in conclusion, as we all worthy opponents, fellow debaters, the audience, good afternoon. I am Hyacinth Priceless, a representative of Islam College of Education, Enugu. I stand before you today to propose the motion that capping agency and legal fees at 10% is negatively impacting the real estate sector. I'd like to start with a reflection on the importance of fairness and balance in business transactions. To have a great deal, there must be negotiation. But when the rules are skewed, the game is rigged. Now, capping agency and legal fees at 10% may seem like a solution to provide house affordability, but it has far-reaching and detrimental consequences for the real estate sector. I'll back up my claim with the following points. 1, reduce property availability. If agents are less incentivized to actively seek out and list properties, this could lead to the overall unavailability of properties on the market, making it harder for buyers to find suitable homes. 2, reduce investment in the sector. Capping fees would discourage professionals and investors from entering the sector, thereby reducing the efforts in property development. Professionals may seek out for opportunities in other countries with favorable structures. Now, if you own a real estate sector where there are no professional agents, how do you intend generating revenue? Capping fees and legal fees at 10% may lead to rush transactions, overlook details, and potential legal issues down the line. Issues like disagreement between clients and agents. Issues like unprofessional behavior of agents, disputes over terms and conditions. Capping fees at 10% will lead to agents being less incentivized to personally put in effort in getting comprehensive and suitable property for clients. Steve Levitt says, and I quote, "Human respond to incentive, and that's the only thing they respond to." You can agree with me that incentive is a great motivation. A cap commission would diminish the motivation of agents to actively
question. We have students in the hall today. May I ask you, after 4 years of studying either real estate law, estate management, or any course related to real estate, in a country like Nigeria, where inflation is a daily routine and taxation is on the rise, how do you intend to survive on an income as low as 10% in any deal at all? I'll leave you to muse on that question. May I bring to your notice that a bill to cap agency at 10% was raised in Aneke State House of Assembly around February-March 2025. This is already implemented in Lagos State, bringing about the high increase of properties. A shop of 250,000 is now at the rate of 650,000. Is that what we want for ourselves? If you cap agency, you cripple the system. I believe that the affirmation points are convincing enough beyond skepticism that capping agency and legal fees at 10% is negatively impacting the real estate sector. I'll leave my colleagues to lay emphasis on the point. Thank you.
Panelists and honorable debate guests. My name is Chuck Divine. I represent the Enugu State College of Education. And I stand in strong support of the motion, capping legal and agency fee at 10%, promoting housing affordability. I am here not just to talk about capping these fees, but talking about some of the practices that are leading to the inflation of these fees. It is no longer a new thing in Enugu State and Nigeria at large that tenants pay for the services that are rendered to the landlords while they fold their hands watching. What do I mean by that? A tenant is supposed to pay 200k for rent, additional charges are added, caution fee 50,000 naira, agency fee 100,000 naira, legal fee 100,000 naira. At the end of the day, these tenants end up paying 400 to 450,000 naira just for a one-bedroom apartment. This is what I call exploitation of tenants by property owners and landlords. Exploitation because why would a tenant pay for caution when they are not even moved into the apartment, suffer of damaging the property? Even when the property is damaged, these tenants end up fixing these properties without the help of the landlord. Why would a tenant pay an agent who helps the landlord to secure a faster tenant? Why would a tenant pay a lawyer who they never set their eyes on till they move out of that compound? Even when problems arise and legal action needs to be taken, this same lawyer backs up the landlord. I have seen a situation where people are thrown out of their home without an eviction notice. And what do these lawyers have to say about it? Take heart, God is in control. I believe that if the landlords are the major one benefiting from these services, they should be the one footing the bill. If I am here saying that there should not be only, I am here saying that even if there should not be the one fitting the bill, at least let it be capped at 10%. This leads me to the next point, which is the issue of unregistered agents. My opponent here talked about professionalism. I want to tell you that there is no professionalism at all in the first place. This is the issue of unregistered agents, a known fact and a challenge that everyone is facing in Nigeria. People can simply charge you a huge amount of money just for showing you the road to the landlord's house. People can wake up one day and declare themselves agents. I have seen a situation where 3 agents are making money just from one particular tenant. Mind you, these people know nothing about the housing industry. We have countries like France, where to become a real estate agent, you must obtain a professional card from the CCI, Chambers of Commerce and Industry. We also have the United States, where real estate agents must be licensed to practice. We have countries like Dubai, Australia, and Singapore, where real estate agents must be licensed to practice. They must also have a diploma and professional experience in the real estate market. I want to put it to you that with this point, there is no professionalism in the first place. A survey by the Urban Landmark and Good Governance Africa found out that over 60% of Nigeria are experiencing difficulties in accessing good homes. This is as a result of some of these practices. This leads me to the third point, which is the lack of transparency and accountability in our real estate sector. No one is talking about it. The lies that comes with renting an apartment, and they try to tell you that there is constant power supply, only for you to discover that there is no power supply at all. And they try to tell you that there is constant water supply, only for you to see yourself carrying 50 liters on your head, looking for water, few days after moving into the apartment. I stand here today not just to talk about capping these fees, but saying that some of the bad practices that are leading to the inflation of these fees in the real estate market should be aborted, and the inflated fee itself should be capped at 10% to promote housing affordability. Thank you.
Particularly reduces the income of real estate agents and legal practitioners, leading to a decline in the quality of services rendered to their clients, and also discouraging skilled and qualified individuals from remaining in the market. Imagine when your father, as a real estate agent, only earned 10% income after a transaction, knowing fully well that this 10% income will not be sustainable for the family, or pay your fees, will you still encourage the cap system? The answer is no. Going further, it opens doors for unqualified, inefficient, and uncertified agents to flood the market. Already in 2024, August, real estate agents in Enugu State raised concern that the proliferation of quack in Enugu State has reached alarming level, and then you introduce a cap system. Are you introducing a system that will increase the corruption in the sector or provide affordability?
It has nationalism, but it puts the tenants and the property owners at risk of losing their properties and money to fraud. Going further, we have students in different institutions in Enugu State currently studying real estate-related courses. What becomes the fate of these students after they graduate, knowing fully well that they've invested 4 years of their life in education? My dear students, are you trying to tell me that when they graduate from school, they come out to meet a cap system that will not be able to take care of their bills? What does this do? It immediately leads to the migration of these students to other countries, other states, where their value and their qualities are best appreciated, leaving the sectors for unqualified agents, leading to the brunt actions because they have migrated to other states. And also, that's the dreams of aspiring real estate agents and legal practitioners. Is that what you want? You say that capping agency fees for affordability, but mind you, it's open way for corruption, thereby increasing the hidden charges in the sector. Imagine when you make a down payment for a transaction of 300,000 naira, and at the end of this transaction, you are asked to pay extra fees. Will you be happy? I believe that the location and the value of a property should determine the fees agents take at the end of transaction. Imagine as an agent, you rent at an apartment at Obiagu and another apartment in New Haven. Knowing fully well that the apartment in New Haven has a good location and the value is on the high side, you earn a 10% income after the whole transaction. Will you as an agent be satisfied with that income? Knowing fully well that it is nothing to write home about. Is that what you are encouraging? No affordability, no credibility. Is that what you want as an agent? I also stand to say that introducing a cap system in Enugu State automatically increases the value at which a property should be sold for. The value for which a property should be sold for in the next 3 years automatically becomes the price at which it is sold for presently. Imagine when a property should be sold for 600,000 naira in 54 years' time to come, and because of a cap agency, they introduce the price at the current price at which it is sold for. Do you see call affordability? I stand here firmly to say that introducing a cap system in Enugu State is not to the favor of real estate agents, not to the favor of tenants, not to the interest of the property owners, and also not to the best interest of the economy of Enugu State as a whole. Thank you.
I am here to oppose the proposed motion which states that capping agency at legal fee will promote the real estate sector and house affordability. And with these points I summarize. One of the advantages of capping legal fees at 10% is that it will make house ownership more affordable to a wider range of people. Currently, agency fee add up to a significant portion of our amount of houses and properties, deterring many buyers. By capping this fee, the government will help make home ownership more accessible to these people, giving them the opportunity to live in their dream homes. Each and every one of us here want to live in our dream homes where we enjoy peaceful communities and live the good life. Unlike my opponents here, who doesn't want a cap on this fee, making it possible for individuals to get an affordable apartment at affordable price. We need to make them to have no other option than to reside in a demeaning environment where they will struggle and get infected by diseases. Will you say, is that a fair one? Also, capping this fee will also work stimulate the real estate sector by allowing individuals to engage in property transactions. However, capping this fee will reduce financial burden on individuals, especially the people that are renting house for the first time, allowing them to allocate more resources to other expenses. This also reduce them to struggle to make a down payment of other associated costs. Therefore, by capping this fee, the government will help these individuals to achieve their goals in home ownership, thereby stimulating social stability and economic growth. However, capping this fee will promote transparency and accountability. Let's imagine a clear cap of fees. Agencies will have no other option than to operate more efficiently, reducing unnecessary costs and ensuring that individuals get a fair value for their money. This will also build trust between agencies and clients, leading to a more successful and business relationship. In addition, my opponents say that capping this fee will limit the negative impact the real estate sector, leading to a reduced revenue and the quality of services rendered. standard. Let me tell you, this consent can be mitigated by implementing a measure to allow these agencies to operate more effectively. For example, government can provide incentives for these agencies to allow them to innovate and improve in the quality of services. However, it will also make them to establish a good regulatory framework to monitor the compliance. So in conclusion, capping these fees at least 10% rate is the necessary steps toward promoting house affordability and stimulating the real estate sector. These benefits will have what? Reduce financial burden on these people, increase transparency and accountability. By implementing this policy, the government will have what? The government will help improve house accessibility, promote good life, social stability and economic growth. So with this I say, capping this fee at 10% will not only benefit us, it will benefit each and every one of us here, including the agents, including the judges and my opponents. Thank you.
Because their client's peace of mind and happiness is being entrusted into their hands. If these are the duty of the real estate agents and they are being treated negatively, do you think they will still carry on this duty efficiently? Don't you think that it will give room for incompetent, unqualified local agents to embrace the opportunity, thereby stealing your peace of mind? Oh, I forgot. You choose affordability over comfortability. I know my opponents will definitely support the motion that the fee cap helps in house affordability, but this has a negative impact on the real estate sector by reducing quality of service. This fee cap might discourage professionals from providing comprehensive service. According to the survey by the Nigerian Institutions of Surveyors and Valuer Registration Board of Nigeria, 70 to 80% of the real estate agents reported a decline in service due to this particular fee cap. As the saying made by Warren Buffett, price is what we pay, value is what we get. This quote emphasizes on the importance of value over mere cost-cutting measures in professional systems like the real estate. The hand scrub the back scrub the hand. If the real estate is impressed, you as a client will be impressed too. As Aristotle said, quality is not an art but a habit. This quote highlights the importance of maintaining high standards in real estate transactions.
Labor. Ladies and gentlemen, you bear with me with us today that many of the children that you see in the street today, some are 10 years old to 11 years old, hawking gala, selling pure water. Is that what's supposed to be? Exactly, it's no. That's not what's supposed to be. But if free education is being implemented in our country, Nigeria today, you see those children will be in the school, acquiring knowledge and doing as other children are doing. But because of lack of education, they are in the street hawking. Some even go to the extent of pushing wheelbarrow. Ladies and gentlemen, it's not what we're supposed to see in our country, Nigeria today. Second, thirdly, technological advancement. What is technology? You see, so many countries, Nigeria is in so many countries that we see that they are the world power. Example, USA, Germany, China, and so on and so forth. I want to tell you that they are the world power today because they have advanced in technology, true or false. Now, I want to ask you, the advancement that the production of airplanes and other inventions, do they have two heads? I don't know maybe like us, but see, we still have such individuals today. We still have educated individuals today, skilled individuals today. For instance, in another state, a boy of 15 years was able to produce a moving car with iron. Here in Enugu state, a boy of 19 years produced a G-Wagon car. Ladies and gentlemen, will you bet me that if free education is being given to such an individual, our country, Nigeria, will be a better home to stay? True or false? Good. Lastly, citizens patriotism. Ladies and gentlemen, you will bear me witness that any person that was being educated will want to give back to the society. That is true, because as all of us are sitting down here, that is being trained by our parents. After you have gotten a job, will you not give back to your parents? That is exactly what's happening. If free education is being implemented in our country, Nigeria today, so many persons will have this love to give back to the society. They will have the desire to see that the country becomes a better place today. Because of free education or what has happened, that
the chairman, the moderator, accurate timekeeper, my ever attentive audience, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Standing here this day is John Chukwemeka Boniface from the Federal College of Education in Hamufu. I am here to propose the motion which says that implementing free education will it boost or hinder Enugu State and Nigerian's future. First, let me start by saying free education is given especially to people or family that have low income or family who can't sponsor all their children to school. My first point is this: it reduces the rate of crime. We all know that the majority of youth loitering in the society, all these fugitives, vagabonds, they are mainly school dropouts. Why? Because they couldn't finish up their education. Had it been they finished their education, they would have known, number one, the consequences of their actions. Number two, they wouldn't have gotten themselves into such mess in which they are in the society today. Another thing is it reduces inequality in the family. We all know that in some rural countries, in some rural places today, there is still this inequality in the family that boys should go to school whereas the girls should stay behind. No, if free education is given to such family, you believe with me that if we give both genders equal access to education, thereby democratizing education. Now, I want to ask all of you here, majority of you here are students, if you are given free education, will you reject it? That is it. So, why the opponent might say that it reduces the quality of education? It's a lie. Because if free education is given, it will improve learning among peers. Is that not true? Thank God for our barrister, the governor of Enugu State, for all the infrastructures, the school is putting in places in Enugu State because he knows the value of education. Why the opponent might equally say that it is not to go to school. After school, what are you going to do? Do you have a job? All these schools built by our governor, who are going to work there? Are they not people that have graduated? Are they not people who are trained? So these schools built in Enugu State is a job waiting for those that are going to graduate from various schools. Another thing is that it reduces stress among the students. We all here are students. Some of us do menial jobs in order to help ourselves in the schools. For example, me standing here, yesterday I missed a class because I went to do some menial jobs to pay some fees in my department. And even I'm giving free education, I wouldn't have missed that class. So, free education reduces stress on the side of the student. It also gives them reassuring hope. It gives them confidence to do what they are sent to do in the school. So, you saying that free education will not help, will not boost, you are. Thank you. So, free education will boost not only Enugu State future, but Nigeria as a whole. Thank you all.
Standing here is no other person than Chinedu Miracles. I'm from Federal College of Education in Yamufu. The first speaker from the opposition side. I'm here to propose a motion which says that implementing education will it boost or hinder Enugu and Nigeria's future. Why my opponent will say that if free education is unsustainable and unaffordable, we firmly believe that its benefits outweigh the cost. By investing in education, we are also investing in our collective future. Firstly, free education ensures equal opportunity to all, regardless of the socio-economic background, thereby making education to have a free access to all our subjects. Secondly, economic growth. Due to the production and consumption of goods and services in education, in economy, the educated population drives innovation, it's entrepreneurship from this education. Thirdly, education breaks the cycle of poverty. There's this saying that says that the best way to eradicate poverty is through what? Education. Thereby, education breaks the what? The cycle of what? Poverty. By empowering the individual and the communities and the land, and also the society. the workforce.